Hello folks! So today I wanted to discuss an important transit, but before I do, I want to say a big thanks to those who have subscribed and to those who leave feedback. If you need to contact me for a reading, or if you just want to connect with me on social media, I have put the links in the description box below, so have a look there. Alright, so today we're going to look at Saturn's movement into Dhanishta nakshatra. Saturn moves into Dhanishtha on February the 17th till March 15th, 2023. And then again from October the 15th, 2023 till November the 24th, 2023. So around 14 months in total. Of course, the date may vary a bit depending on where you are in the world. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into this. Now, the primary result of a planet is always derived from the house and the nakshatra of where it's placed or transiting. Secondarily, we see which houses are aspected by this transiting planet. So here, despite the change in nakshatra, we need to keep the aspects in mind. Now, besides the normal seventh aspect, which all planets have, Saturn also has two special aspects, the third and the seventh. And if you're familiar with Western astrology, essentially this is the sextile and the square aspects. Now, the effect of Saturn's third aspect is where we must make efforts, we must take initiative to see the results. Now, does it guarantee results? Perhaps, but at times it can seem like an endless effort with little return. So it's also going to depend on how strong the Lord is of the third house from Saturn where it's aspecting. Yeah. Now, with Jupiter moving into Pisces in April, we know that this is an excellent position for Jupiter, where Saturn throws its third aspect from Capricorn. Then there is a 10th aspect, the most powerful aspect, due to the fact that Saturn is the Garaka of the 10th house. So this is where we see the difficult karma manifesting in our lives. Now, this is Libra. And Ketu is moving there in April. So see what Libra signifies for you. This is the place where you may have to surrender somewhat. So essentially during the transit, Saturn will continue to aspect Cancer, Pisces, as well as Libra. Until Rahu moves into Aries in April, Saturn is actually still being aspected by a strong Rahu from Taurus at this time. From 29th of April till July the 12th, Saturn will briefly dip into Aquarius, and at this time the table is reversed as Saturn will aspect Rahu in Aries, placing some caution on that Rahu impulse to act. In fact, these two planets will continue to impact each other for most of the year. So if you have important planets in air or fire signs, then get ready for some big life changes, some surprises, but lots of growth potential. For water signs, you may have to retract and let go in areas of your life that are impacted by Saturn until Jupiter enters Pisces in April. When Saturn moves through Aquarius in April, water signs will feel instant relief, as instead of Saturn's restrictive glance, they will feel Jupiter's abundant gaze. Now, for this video today, firstly, I'm going to speak about Dhanishtha, and then we'll get more into Saturn's transit. Now, Dhanishtha has a very special role as it's at the juncture of Capricorn and Aquarius. Its Shakti is abundance and fame. Dhanishtha causes abundance. The deities, which are the 8 Vasus, have a deep connection with sound as well. And Dhanishtha basically means bringing to earth. So essentially, it's the ability to manifest things into reality. It's kind of a make it happen energy, yeah? One of the symbols of Dhanishta is Shiva's Dhamru, drums, which is, again, essentially sound. And in essence, it goes back to that message of being in tune with life's rhythms, which can then lead to the manifestation process. Yeah. So if you have a planet in Dhanishtha, Saturn touching it will activate it, energize it into action. There will be an urge to take an idea and manifest it. But as usual, Saturn moving here most of the year can bring some delays in this area and perhaps even some restarts. But of course, Dhanishtha does not give up easily. Dhanishtha needs a mission, a purpose, and it's driven by that goal, and won't rest until it's achieved it. Dhanishtha also symbolizes music, dance, musical instruments. In essence, it's the creation of sound and rhythm, which helps us to connect with the universe. Again, being in tune with what's around us. Yes. So it's Saturn here will bring home that message. It will reinforce that message of being in tune. A message that was first delivered when Jupiter was moving through Dhanishtha. But part of the movement of Jupiter was debilitated, and then part of the movement in Aquarius was actually quite speedy. So now we're really going to see the impact of this. Now, being in tune, what does that mean? It can be being in tune with others, being in tune simply with nature, being in tune with our surroundings, our environment, and it can also make people more environmentally conscious. So at this time, we may see many changes in lifestyles, the food we eat, the products we use, and some people will be adopting alternative lifestyles also, which is already playing out with the whole pandemic. Now, the drum symbolism, the Shiva's Dhamru, it also speaks toward the rhythm with which the dead awaken. What does that mean? So this connotation here is basically people who are leading a tamasic life. And what is that? It's basically doing the same thing day in, day out, over and over and over again, without much thought behind it, basically in inertia. And I think there's many people who are doing this, even though the pandemic might have woken up some people. By the same token, it's put some people into this kind of lifestyle due to forced circumstances, or sometimes just because of laziness, what have you. And with this transit, with the Saturn transit, there may be financial corrections of all sorts that are taking place. For instance, this could mean a time when financial assistance from government may decline, which will force people to be more creative. It's a good time, therefore, to invent, to create a new path for yourself. And if we go back to the symbolism, that Dhamaru, the drums, they're hollow from the inside, which means you're creating music from hollowness. Again, the connotation is creating something out of nothing. So it can be a time when many people bring a lot of creations to life, beautiful creations, virtually out of nothing. It can result in creating new art forms. Again, simply out of your own inspiration or what you see around you. It can also mean creating money and wealth out of nothing. In other words, starting from nothing, starting from scratch, forging your own path. Now, the flute is also considered a symbol of Dhanishtha. A flute, being a wind instrument, represents being in tune, actually, with perhaps the sound of your inner voice, and the hollow reed of the flute symbolizes the energy canal within the spine through which life energy ascends. Now Dhanishtha, you may have heard of. It also symbolizes dancing to the beat of your own drum, essentially going your own way. But with Saturn here, you're going to be driven more to be more in tune with the environment, with others, with nature, perhaps. Now, the controlling planet of Dhanishtha is Mars, which points to some risk-taking at this time, some ambitious activities in order to make life improvements. In fact, it can especially impact real estate, property issues, where you will see changes happening. Now, Mars is connecting with all the major planets this year, starting the year with a conjunction with Ketu, as we saw, then a long conjunction with Venus, then with Saturn, then with Jupiter, and finally with Rahu in late summer. And the year will end with a Mars retrograde transit, mostly in Taurus. So this dynamic movement of Mars will, of course, impact this Saturn transit. Now, Dhanishtha is also known as the most benevolent nakshatra because of its ability to adapt and be very resourceful. And being that we have Saturn gliding through here, we will need the perseverance, because Saturn energies can bring all sorts of obstacles and blocks, and even some U-turns with your plans, especially when that Saturn goes retrograde. Now, Dhanishtha is a movable nakshatra, so this can increase travel for some people. Now, besides the connection to Shiva through the drums and Krishna through the flute, the deities personified by Dhanishtha are the 8 Vasus, symbolizing abundance, symbolizing energy, symbolizing light. And with Saturn, the darkest planet, occupying this nakshatra, there may be challenges with obtaining stability, especially financial stability. Due to Saturn being in a dignified position, hard work and perseverance, along with patience, results will eventually manifest, but can be slow. Yeah, you may experience slow but lasting outcomes, especially in the areas of finance. Gaining authority and recognition can become important in your career at this time. And you may also become interested in your hobbies. So make time for creative pursuits, especially anything connected to music and dance. Relationship matters, however, can suffer because Dhanishta is not a nakshatra that promotes relationship satisfaction. So you may decide to go it alone or deal with long-term relationship problems that will now come to the surface. Now, this can be a breakdown, it can be a separation, it can be a dissolution of the relationship. But by April, when it comes to relationship matters, you'll see the light and you'll start to put more energy into relationships that are beneficial and nurturing for you, and leave those behind that make you feel depleted. Now, Dhanishtha spans from 2320 degrees of Capricorn till 640 degrees of Aquarius. Saturn will start its transit, as usual, in Pada 1 of Dhanishtha in the Navamsha of Leo, just after the Leo full moon, on the 17th. In the beginning of this transit, Saturn is with Mercury and getting an aspect of Rahu from Taurus. And at this time, Mars is in a tight conjunction. And we call this sometimes a war with Venus, pointing toward relationship difficulties. Saturn moving through Dhanishta now can further amplify these relationship problems. It can bring selfishness in people and lack of harmony in all kinds of relationships. it can also bring some pessimistic thinking in relationship matters. On March the 19th, after we pass the Virgo full moon, Saturn enters Pada 2 of Dhanishtha in the Navamsha of Virgo. Now, here you can expect some strong material results and success in all of your undertakings. So if you thought about making some investments, actually this is a good time to do so, especially with real estate. It's also a good time to decorate your home with Vastu considerations in mind, because Dhanishtha is connected to Vastu Shastra. Yeah. From April 3rd till April the 6th, thereabouts, there can be some frustrations and blocks to your plans because there's an exact conjunction of Saturn and Mars at this time. And then Saturn moves into Aquarius on April the 29th. And this means that it goes into the Navamsha of Libra, where Saturn performs very well. This is Saturn's exaltation, as you know. And this is also where we can see some positive manifestations of Dhanishtha. You can see people get interested in music, fine arts, dance can be prevalent, and people can find fulfillment here as well as with any kind of esoteric or astrology disciplines. So if you wanted to expand that in your area, that's a fantastic time to do it. It will also strengthen relationships because it's connecting with Venus, and Venus is exalted part of this transit. So diplomacy, courtesy, tact are qualities that will be enhanced and will also get results at this time. It's also a good time for socializing and group activities of all kind. Now, one thing to note is as soon as Saturn enters this Pada and Aquarius, we see an eclipse taking place on April the 30th in Bharani. So this is that Libra and Aries axis. So this could spell the beginning of a new relationship for many people, and alternatively a new path of some sort, especially if you have planets, personal planets in the Libra and Aries axis. Now, due to its retrograde cycle starting on June the 4th, Saturn will remain in this Pada 3, till July the 13th. Yeah. July the 13th is when Saturn returns to Capricorn and returns to the Navamsha of Virgo and remains there until August the 29th. Now, Saturn travels alone at this time, and it doesn't receive any malefic aspects. And part of the transit, Mercury is also exalted in Virgo. So it's a good time to undertake new projects or take up a new job or go in a new career direction, for example. And if that's the case, you'll likely succeed, especially if you go it alone. Yeah. Now, on August 29th till December the 14th, Saturn will return to the Navamsha of Leo. And this can be a good time for making money. Your wealth can increase at this time, especially if you have your own business, yeah, or if you work alone. Maybe you're freelance or something. It can, however, bring some challenges in relationship matters if you did not address them earlier in the year. And conflicts with others can also increase. Now, if you want to overcome some of this aggressive energy, then maybe take up some rigorous activity. Dhanishtha also gets associated with martial arts, with boxing, with wrestling. So if you consider getting into this, now is a good time to do that, just to vent that excess energy. This phase is also really good for making new plans and goals and completing old projects. Yeah. On October 23rd, in fact, Saturn will go direct, so good time to forge ahead with those plans. From December 14th till January the 17th, again, Saturn returns to Virgo. So any project, work, or new endeavor that you would have started in March or April, it will come to completion now. Yeah? After facing some hurdles, you can now feel a sense of accomplishment in whatever you started in those spring months. And then finally, Saturn will go into the Libra Navamsha from January the 17th till February the 14th, 2023. This will bring harmony back into relationships, as there could have been conflicts in the autumn months. From February 14th till March the 14th, it's going to transit through the Navamsha of Scorpio, which is the last pada of Dhanishtha. This can be a little bit of an aggressive period because this Saturn in this pada in Scorpio, you can see some aggression coming to the surface, but it's for a very short period of time. But at this time, it is for a short period of time. And also, the other thing is that most of the planets at this time are actually in dignity, with Venus exalted and Rahu transiting alone. So it actually shouldn't have too much of an adverse impact in your life. Now, on March the 14th, 2023, Saturn leaves Dhanishta and moves on to Shatavisha. There will be a brief dip into Dhanishtha in October of 2023. So Saturn will return to Dhanishtha, which is the Scorpio Navamsha, that pada 4, from October the 15th, 2023 till November the 24th, 2023. Now, at this time, we have two eclipses also taking place. One is on October the 14th, and the other on October 28th of 2023. And they will both take place in the Aries-Libra axis. So, again, perhaps impacting relationships. And of course, see what you have in that axis and where do Aries and Libra fall for you. And that's the area that's going to get impacted. There can be a push-pull between individual goals and relationship goals at this time. And this can result in some endings and new beginnings too in relationships. Now, at this juncture here, October 2023, Rahu and Ketu are actually getting ready to leave this Aries-Libra axis. So it could spell a new chapter for many people. Yeah. Now, the combination of that Venus-Mars war that we're currently experiencing, along with Saturn's position in Dhanishtha, and finally Ketu moving through Libra till the end of October 2023, suggests major transformation in relationships. It can be business relationships, it can be personal relationships, marriages, committed partnerships of all kinds. It doesn't have to be negative. Transformation can mean a change of a lifestyle within that relationship, a move of some kind, which forces you to change the lifestyle. It could be the addition of a new family member. I mean, some transformation will certainly take place. Overall, I would say it's an average transit, this one. We have some good bits, because even during those transformative times, the majority of the transit is in the Navamsha of Virgo and Libra, which are very beneficial for positive and creative changes. The challenging bits, I would say, are the first few days of April, where we will see that conjunction of Mars and Saturn. And at that time, Saturn is in the second pada. And then towards the end of the transit might be quite challenging. That last portion, October 15th till November the 24th of 2023, when Saturn is in the fourth pada, which is the most challenging pada anyway, and we have eclipses happening at the same time. Also at that time, Saturn is retrograde. Yeah, so now, what is Saturn anyway, and why is it considered such a dreadful planet? Saturn's movement and its transits impact us more dramatically than any other planet, and only the nodal transits can affect us with the same intensity. and leave such a kind of I would say, long-lasting effect in our lives. Yeah. Of course, if you look at it in the simplistic terms, it's because they're the slowest moving transits, right? They're the slowest moving planets. Now, if there's one word to describe Saturn, that is limitation. What does that mean? It means understanding the limits imposed on the soul and working within those parameters. So any place Saturn is touching in the chart, transiting in the chart, you start to see life's shortcomings, and you start to see life's barriers highlighted, because Saturn is showing you the limits of time especially. And then you become aware of all those aspects that are out of your control, and therefore they seem predestined. So, in this way, Saturn can signify setbacks, delays, endings, restrictions. Ultimately, Saturn can also teach us to accept these limits, compel us to accept these limits because of its slow-moving transit, understand our fears and doubts, and develop patience. Now, once that veil of illusion that we build to cope with life is removed during a Saturn transit, we're basically left with the harshness of reality. And then what do? Well, we reinvent some aspect of our life. We recreate some aspect of our life. And in this way, transform our life. So wherever Capricorn and Aquarius fall in your chart, you may initially experience feelings of restriction, helplessness, loneliness, and isolation until you're ready to see the limits. And then, therefore, make changes and transform your situation. Now, in order to really see how the transit will affect you, you need to look at the following. You need to see the lordship of Saturn for your lagna. And I would say also look at the lordship of Saturn for your moon. Okay? For some people, when it comes to transits, I focus more on the moon, and I feel that the transits from the moon are more impactful, frankly speaking. But depending on what's going on in your chart, the lagna transits may impact you more. What is stronger, the moon or the lagna? Nonetheless, look at both. So for instance, you're a Cancer lagna, then Saturn is your 7th and 8th lord. So you could be reevaluating the relationship with your life partner. And this probably has been going on for the last couple of years with your business partner. If you're single, you may be looking at prospective matches in a more serious and a more critical eye. Yeah, evaluating whether they have longer term potential, for example. You may have been faced with some surprises also in this area of life, because Saturn is also your 8th lord. 8th lord transiting the 7th house can result in deep changes in the personality as well, and your psyche as well. Yeah. So by the end of the transit, you would have grown up a lot, but you would probably change in significant ways, right? Matured in significant ways. Also see planets that are situated in Dhanishtha itself and see what they represent. So if you have personal planets here, or you're in those planets as dasha, well, of course you will be impacted directly. Yeah. So let's take an example. Suppose you're a Scorpio lagna and you have Venus sitting in Dhanishtha. Well, then this will, of course, trigger your 7th and 12th house matters, right? Because Venus rules those houses for you. So some travel could come up, but it may not be favorable travel. It may not be desirable travel. A move abroad could come up. Maybe you're trying to move abroad, but some hiccups come up so that you're unable to do so and you have to postpone it, for instance. Because it's also 7th lord Venus for you, relationship matters could go through some issues, especially if you have a serious partner. And because Saturn is moving over the 7th lord. So it can sometimes bring disappointment in relationships. What if you're an Aries Lagna? Well, this is your Lagna Lord, right? Your ascendant Lord. Sitting in Dhanishtha. So with Mars there, being in almost exact, depending on the degrees, it will be an exact exaltation. Some issue could come up in your life. It could be related to your health. It could be related to like changing your identity in some way, right? You're recreating your life. You're recreating your work. You're recreating yourself in some way. Maybe your image. Yeah. Well, because we're talking about a Mars sitting in Dhanishtha, which is a very dignified place for Mars, Saturn will give you that focus and determination to finally do what perhaps you've been putting off, right? If it's a health matter, it could bring the solution to light, for example. So it really depends also on the planet sitting in Dhanishtha. Right? Is it a place where it does well? Is Capricorn or even the Aquarius portion where the planet is comfortable, for instance? Yeah. If you're going through a Mars dasha or Antardasha, or if you have Mars in Dhanishtha, as I said, this could trigger those areas that Mars signifies. Because we always have to pay attention to the controlling planet of the nakshatra. Yeah. What it's doing in your chart, what it's doing in transit especially. Right, because we're talking about Saturn's transit, so we have to see the transit of Mars as Saturn moves through Dhanishtha. But also the ruling deity. Here we have the 8 Vasus, signifying all types of wealth. The Shakti of Dhanishtha is that of abundance. It's the power to give fame and abundance. Now, because Saturn is transiting here, you will have to be resourceful with your finances at this time. Mars' position is strong, actually, throughout most of the year. With the exception of late October when it goes retrograde. So I would say if you want to implement major plans, do so before then. Although Saturn moving through Dhanishtha can make you more focused, it can make you more structured and organized, there are times when, during the transit, when Saturn does receive malefic aspects, right? So it makes it more challenging to get things accomplished. And even that, the retrograde period can bring some hiccups. Now, some remedies for Dhanishtha. Spending time in nature, listening to music, learning a new music instrument or a new dance form, keeping your promises. Yeah, that's actually a very, very good remedy for any disturbance to Dhanishtha. This is especially the case if you've got some personal planets in Dhanishtha, like Venus or Moon or Mercury. Having a disciplined lifestyle. So, for example, getting up early, sleeping early. Also, it's an excellent time to visualize your life goals, write them down, and then execute a plan to achieve them. Often what happens with big life goals and plans, sometimes you can try to jump from step 1 to step 5, right? But at this time, you will get successful results if you do the mundane bits, the boring bits, right? So all the steps in the middle that nobody sees, but it's the work that you have to do to achieve your goals. Yeah. Now, if you do mantra puja or some kind of deity worship, then of course Krishna and Shiva get associated with this nakshatra. Any mantra for Durga actually is very good. Or even Mars related mantras are excellent to practice. Fasting on a Tuesday can bring some results. If you want to do mantras, easy one would be for Durga, which would be like, for example, Om Dam Durgaye Namaha. The simple one. Remember, as always, your dasha is going to serve as the background and take importance here. So, for example, if you're in the Saturn dasha or a Mars dasha, then this transit is very relevant to you. And of course, it goes without saying, look at Antardasha also. Because often the Antardasha is where all the events actually manifest in life. Yeah. So as usual, feel free to leave your comments and remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, folks. All the best.